Hello students, welcome to our first video lesson for the school year for Algebra 2. Okay, so in this lesson I'm going to give you a review on the operations we can do on fractions or using fractions, and they are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And I'm going to start with addition and subtraction, and I'm just going to remind you that to be able to add or subtract fractions, we must have common denominators. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to pause the video, copy what you see here, and then press play so you can continue copying the examples as I work through them. Okay. All right. So this is where your multiplication skills are going to come in handy in Algebra 2. Okay, and I know you have been multiplying since elementary school, and by now most of you, if not all of you, have a strong understanding of how to multiply. So remember here, we must have a common denominators on both of the fractions, or if we're trying to add 2 or 3 or more, they gotta have the same denominator so we can add them or subtract them. So let's look at example number 1. So if you look at example number 1, this is 1/2 plus 3/5. Notice that the denominator on this one is a 2 and this one is a 5. So that means they do not have the same denominator. But I know that if I multiply 2 times, let's say a number, okay, and I multiply 5 times another number, I can end up with the same denominator. The question is, what are those numbers? So the denominators are 10, okay, and you'll see how in a moment. And I think some of you already got it, if not all of you. So what number do I multiply this 2 to give me a 10? The answer is a 5. Okay, and what number do I multiply this 5 to give me a 10? The answer is a 2. So I'm going to multiply across. So 5 times 1 gives me a 5, and this simplifies to, or reduces to 1/2 if I reduce it. And 3 times 2, that's going to give me a 6. And this again reduces to 3/5 if I need to reduce it. So then once we have the same denominator, we just add the numerators. So 5 plus 6, that's 11, and keep the denominator. Okay, so the answer to this problem is 11/10. All right, let's go to the next example. On the next example, again, we see that this has a 12, this one is a 4, but I know that 4 is a factor of 12. So this is going to be our least common denominator. So I'm going to leave that 12 as a denominator of both. Okay, so I need to turn that 4 into a 12 somehow. So this one I don't have to do anything, but for the sake of practice, I'm going to multiply by 1/1. Why? Because it's not going to change anything, okay? But on this one, however, I need to turn that 4 into a 12. That means I need to multiply by a 3. And 3 times 3 gives me 9. 4 times 3 gives me 12, and 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 12 is 12. Now we have the same denominator, so we can just go ahead and combine or add 1 plus 9, which are the numerators. So this will be 10/12. Now, we should be able to reduce this fraction. So say, I know 2 goes into 10 5 times, but 2 also goes into 12 6 times. And this one I can't reduce it any further, so that means this will be my final answer to number 2, and that's the simplest form. Okay, that's as much as you can reduce. All right, let's go to example number 3. Example number 3, I have a 7 and I have an 8. I'm going to give you a hint here. Notice what I did here. I multiplied 2 times 5 and 5 times 2. Guess what I'm going to do here? I'm going to multiply 7 times 8 and 8 times 7. So when you multiply 8 times 7, and again, that's why I said your multiplication skills are going to be handy here. So 7 times 8 is 56. So I know the common denominator is going to be 56. Okay? So if I multiply top and bottom by 7, 8 times 2 is going to give me a 16. And on this one, I'm going to multiply by 7, top and bottom again. Okay, so this 3 times 7 is 21. Now I'm ready to subtract the numerators. Okay, so 16 minus 21 is going to be a 5, and it's going to be a negative. So this is negative 5/56. And there is the answer to number 3. Let's go on to number 4. And this will be the last example for addition and subtraction of fractions. First of all, notice that this is a whole number and this is a fraction. So to help me work this out as this problem, I'm going to write a 1 under that 3 and understand that if I divide 3 by 1, it's still going to give me a 3. Okay, so I'm just trying to manipulate this problem to help me answer or do the operation that I'm being asked to do. All right, so again, that's a 3, this is a 1. That means that the least common denominator is going to be 3. Okay, so if I multiply 3 times 1, it's going to give me a 3, so that means I need to multiply this by 3, top and bottom. This one, again, I don't have to do it, but you know, just so that you understand how this works out, just write that down. 3 times 3, that's 9. 3 times 1, that's a 3. 4 times 1 is going to be 4. And 3 times 1 is going to be 3. Now I can do the operation subtracting 4 from 9. So 9 minus 4, that gives me a 5. And the same denominator, so the answer to this one is 5/3. I can't simplify this one any further, so I'm done with subtraction. Okay, the next section is for for multiplication. Okay, so on this one here, again, pause the video and copy the problems, and then once you've done that, you can go ahead and press play to continue copying the notes. All right, so for multiplication, we multiply straight across. Okay, but if you do this next part, it's going to make it much easier. Okay, so it's going to make it more bearable and easier to understand how to multiply. So watch. First, we reduce diagonally or up and down when possible. So if it's possible, do it, and if not, just multiply across. So for example, on number 1, this example here, if I do up and down, I see that 7 and 3, they don't reduce. 5 and 14, they don't reduce either. So my next thing will be diagonally. If I look at 3 and 5, they're both prime numbers. I cannot reduce these two. There's no reduction here. But if I look at 7 and 14, well, 7 is a factor of 14. So if I divide 7 by 7, that's going to turn into a 1. And if I divide 14 by 7, that's going to turn into a 2. Okay, and now I'm ready to multiply across the top. So this is going to be 1 times 5 will be 5, and 3 times 2, that's going to be 6. And see, once you do this, this will be as far as you can go when it comes to reduction. Okay, you can't reduce this one any further. So let's go to the next example. So for this one here, again, I can't reduce this using up and down, and I can't reduce this one either. So then I'm going to try to do it diagonally. And I look at 11 and 7, and again, those two are prime. I can't reduce them. But if I look at 8 and 24, I know that 8 is a factor of 24 because 8 goes into 24 3 times, and 8 goes into 8 1 time. So now I'm ready to multiply across. So then this is 1 times 7, and 11 times 3, that's going to be a 33. And there is the answer to this multiplication of those two fractions. Okay, let's go on to the last two examples. For these two examples, this is section 3 of fraction operations. Okay, and I'll just show you all of it here. When we divide, I'm going to suggest that you use keep it, change it, flip it, and I believe you've used this before. But understand that all we're doing is we're multiplying but the reciprocal. Okay, so let's look at the first example so you can kind of begin to understand what I'm saying here. So since I'm going to use keep it, what that means is I'm going to keep the first fraction. I'm not going to do anything to it. I'm just going to copy it the way it is. So 3/8. And then to change it, this says divide. I'm going to do the opposite of divide, which is multiply. I'm going to use multiplication instead of division. Okay, so there's a change it part. To flip it, that means I'm going to take this fraction here and I'm going to flip it. And again, understand that all I'm doing is I'm taking the reciprocal of this fraction. So instead of dividing, I'm multiplying this fraction by the one in the denominator. So now I'm ready to multiply. And again, keep in mind, if you can reduce diagonally or up and down, go ahead and do that. Okay, but in this case, it's not possible. So then we just multiply across. So then 3 times 7 is going to be a 21. 8 times 1 is going to be 8. And if you look at this, we can't reduce this any further. So this is our answer for that problem. Okay. On the next example, notice that we have 4/9 divided by 5. This is a whole number, so I need to turn this into a fraction by writing a 1 under the 5. And now I'm going to apply this again. I'm going to keep it. So keep the first one. So that's going to be 4/9. I'm going to change the operation from division to multiplication. And then I'm going to flip this denominator. Okay, so then it's going to be, instead of 5/1, it's going to be 1/5. And now I'm ready to multiply across. 4 times 1 is going to be 4. And 9 times 5 is going to be 45. And there is the answer to this problem. And we're done with this lesson. Okay, so if you're lost on any of the examples, my advice is go ahead and rewind the video and rewatch it again, see if that helps. And if that doesn't help, then you can always talk to me in the classroom if you're face-to-face, if you're a face-to-face student, or you can also send me an email. You can send me a Canvas message. You can also send me a remind message. So whatever is more convenient for you, you can go ahead and let me know. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video lesson. Bye-bye.